Well, welcome to this session 4 of the day. I've got a fantastic panel with me to talk about big growth. So the topic of this session is investor impact on the industry. I've said the number about 17 times today, but the industry is worth 4.2 trillion. We know it, we've heard it. We also know that with that comes enormous opportunity for investment. So from a brand's perspective, there's obviously an exciting element to that, which is enabling small businesses with big ideas to grow faster and to expand, not just in the UK, but also globally. And so for this session, we've brought together a panel of experts, a panel of experienced either investors or sort of support elements to the investment process, of whom I'll introduce in a moment. What we really want the takeaways from this session to be, knowing really what being investor ready means for you or for your business, and as defined by the investors themselves, what they're looking for, what the various options are that are available to you to grow your business, whether that is institutional money or raising money from your audience, your community, and specific insights, I suppose, into the wellness industry, investor opportunities, and obviously very much looking at the future potential for this market. So I'll introduce our panel. I have with me Marika on the end. Thanks for joining us. She's an associate at Seedrs, a pan-European platform for equity crowdfunding. And they were awarded the UK's most active funder in private companies in 2017. She was previously working at the Swedish venture capital firm Backing Minds, which invests in founders outside of the homogenous networks of traditional VC. And just so you know, Seedrs' portfolio includes a number of really interesting wellness brands that some of you will know. So that includes Core Collective, Pollen and Grace just had a very successful campaign, Choc Chick, Blow, Perkbox, who is also featuring on our lineup of speakers today as well. So thanks for joining us, Marika.
Thank you.
To my left is Michael Atkinson, who joins us from Inverleith. He's spent over 15 years in the consumer brand sector within business and brand strategy, marketing and communications. Started his career at L'Oreal, then Britvic soft drinks, before moving into global marketing and strategy, first at Bacardi Martini and then within the wine and spirits section of the LVMH group. Joined Inverleith as operating brand director to set up the private equity fund investing in consumer brand businesses within the focus sectors of health and wellness, lifestyle and heritage brands. So thanks for joining us, Mike.
No problem. Thank you.
And then finally we have with us Shing from Bird and Bird, who regularly advises founders and high growth companies and investors in VC financings and M&A transactions, navigating the early stage financing space, assessing financing options, negotiating deal terms for growth financing deals, and also considering, most importantly, what your exit strategy is and what that looks like. These are all the types of challenges that Shing deals with on a day-to-day basis, working quite a lot with disruptive tech brands especially, but also by virtue of our partnership with Bird and Bird, I'm sure many wellness brands as well. So thank you for joining us. Shing, I suppose for all of you, just to get started, we've seen this astronomical rise in the wellness sector. You all know what I'm talking about in terms of the companies that you've seen grow and that you've supported with financing. Categories from F&B, athleisure, wellness, tech, fitness. What do you think it is about the wellness sector specifically that's piquing interest in the investor landscape? And what particular categories, I suppose, are you seeing as ripe for investment? Perhaps we'll start with you, Marika, on the crowdfunding side.
Definitely. As you know, it's a huge industry. We see like consumer spending increasing, a huge addressable market. But I think one sort of core element to why it's so attractive to investors, it's because it's part of our daily life. We go to the supermarket, we consume it, we spend our money and our salaries on products in this industry. It also allows for a lot of crossover to other industries such as healthcare, travel. It's basically merged in every industry in an aspect. So I think that's definitely one sort of core element to why it's so attractive to investors.
And what about you, Mike?
Well, I mean, I think it sort of goes back to the overall size of it, and it is a huge industry. It's had tremendous growth over the last few years, and that growth is predicted to continue. And obviously, investors are looking to back industries and categories that are demonstrating, strong growth in the future. It's also an incredibly diverse industry as well. So, there's a hugely divergent group of categories that investors can look at and take an interest in. But overall, I think the wellness is absolutely at the forefront of everybody's mind, and that's from a consumer perspective. But also, it's on the government agenda as well in countries around the world. And if you look at the likes of, the UK as an example, just to take, one area, I think it's predicted that there's going to be about 5.5 million people diagnosed with diabetes by 2030 in the UK. And you think about the enormous pressure that puts on the likes of the National Health Service as an example, and things like that. So, it really is, everybody understands the importance of healthy lifestyles, both at a consumer level, but also it's at a higher level as well, at that sort of government level in countries, which means that it feels likely that it's an industry that is going to, continue accelerating for a number of years to come.
And consumer brands are obviously on your radar. Are there any sort of subcategories within that, whether it's in food or specific even areas of food that you're excited about and seeing growth in?
Yeah, I mean, we're within health and wellness. We've predominantly focused on food and drink. And I think there's so many different opportunities there. I mean, people are really starting to, people understand, for instance, the real, connection to what you eat and what you put into your body and the impact that has on both your physical and your mental well-being. I think the understanding of things like, gut health, and how having a healthy gut is important for you from your overall well-being, both physically and mentally. You've got the CBD movement that was talked about in the last session. As a future sort of, billion-dollar industry, that CBD movement is interesting. The whole plant-based movement is huge as well. So there's, within food and drink alone, I mean, that's the opportunity within wellness is that you can't really define it, because there's just so many different areas that you can look at. And actually the challenge is then identifying what's a long-term trend and not just a short-term fad, because I think the wellness industry does have a lot of sort of short-term fads as well.
Yeah, which kind of leads on to my next point, which is, for both you and Marika, what are you looking for when you're assessing a brand for investment? Because it's not just about it being part of a trend or, an exciting category like CBD. It's got to be more than that. It might be that an entrepreneur has a good balance between strategy and vision. But for both of you, and if you can reference any kind of success stories, I suppose, what is it that you're specifically looking for right now?
Yeah, so Seedrs, we're an equity crowdfunding platform, so we basically have sort of two perspectives to take into consideration when assessing a brand. And the first one is obviously the investor perspective. So will this company be an attractive investment opportunity to our investors? This includes looking at, the team, market, traction to date, what they've been able to do with the fund so far, so we can, give a sense of what they've been able to do with the investment. But then there's the other perspective, of course, so the entrepreneur's perspective. Does it make sense for them to crowdfund? Crowdfunding is definitely not for everyone. And therefore, we have to sort of identify also the needs of the business and what type of goal they have with the fundraise. One example could be Oppo Ice Cream, which is like a healthy ice cream brand. Maybe you've tried them. They're in Waitrose everywhere. When they came to us, they had done a lot of super important milestones on a shoestring. They launched in Waitrose. They had amazing sort of community engagement, amazing customers, everybody loved them. We knew this was a great investment opportunity. We also knew that they could really benefit from a crowd raise because they had this community that they wanted to engage, they wanted to do some marketing around it. So we thought, okay, this is a perfect company for crowdfunding. They hit the target in days and they exited after a few years and they made a nice return to investors. So it was a perfect case.
Mm.
Shing, what are you sort of seeing as the appetite for investors and what they're specifically looking for? What are those criteria that make for a success story like that?
Yeah, I think, obviously when investors are investing in companies, they're backing the founders. So I think you've got to have a very, very solid team of founders, usually comprising of 1 or 2 people. And the other thing you got to keep in mind is, your business plan. You've got to have a plan. If you're going to start looking to raise money, what are you doing with it? You got to have a 3 to 5 year plan. How much do you think you're raising? How are you going to spend it? It goes to growth, goes to product, and you also got to balance. You got to strike a balance between asking for too much and asking for just right amount. So I don't think it's easy to do that, but you got to think about it. You got to be quite thoughtful. You got to say it may be the case that you ask for, an amount just to get you to phase 1 in terms of your product, and then ask for subsequent amounts later on. I think it's never a good look to ask for too much. Yeah, that's my thought.
Mike, what about you from your kind of success story portfolio?
Well, I mean, we look for sort of very specific things in terms of our investment criteria. There's a certain size of business that first off we're looking at, and that will obviously vary depending on different private equity funds. But for us then it's about, are we seeing in the business the sort of convergence of established or growing trends? That's really important. Is there a product USP? Does it have a strong defendable market position? Is there proof of concept? We're not a venture capital fund, so we want to see that a brand or a company has got resonance with the consumers that it's targeting, and that can demonstrate that it's working and appeals. We're looking to take brands just outside of the UK, so the fact that the concept will be able to work from an international perspective is really important to us. And then finally, it's about, are the founders and managers of the business open to the collaborative approach of Inverleith? We're slightly different as a private equity fund because over half of us in the fund have all come from consumer brand backgrounds. So we think that makes quite a big point of difference, because we've walked in the shoes of marketing directors, commercial directors, CEOs, so we can be more empathetic to businesses in terms of the challenges that they face. So an investment from Inverleith is about financial expertise, but also operational expertise. And so not all founders necessarily want that. And that's
it's not silent money.
No, exactly. We've got to make sure we're working with businesses where the founders don't want silent money, because then it's not right for us, and it won't be right for them either.
Yeah, absolutely. What, from your experience, all of you, are the kind of the red flags that when you're looking at a business from an investment perspective? Marika, you said that not all brands are right for crowdfunding. What are those red flags? And when a brand comes to you and says, we want a crowdfund, and it's not right, what are those usual markers?
Usually when we say sort of no to a company, it's basically because they might not sort of understand the concept behind crowdfunding. It might not make sense for them. They don't actually want to have the sort of public platform to be on. Maybe they want to stay more like incognito. Maybe they don't have a community that they know want to invest. Maybe they don't even want to sort of focus on that aspect. So it's a lot of sort of a fit that usually is sort of mistakes for the red flags. But then as we sort of do the due diligence, then we have all the sort of traditional red flags as well as any sort of investment company. So, any like complicated company structures and strange loans, or when assessing investments, also, looking at, is there a lot of regulation in this industry that they're operating in? That could be a hinder. It's a low entries to barrier. It means it's a lot of competitors. So a lot of metrics that you need to take into consideration, definitely.
Mike, from your perspective?
Some sort of thing. I mean, what would be red flags for us? A business that has exhibited 2 to 3 years of really strong double-digit growth, but now is only sort of growing at 1 to 2%. What does it mean? Is the product not working? Is the category not as big as people thought it was? So that would be one. Within food and drink and those kind of brands, have there been any significant distribution losses? If you've been in Waitrose, you've been in Tesco, you've been in Sainsbury's, and suddenly you're not there anymore, it's probably hinting at, there's a rate of sale decline, or again, it's not resonating as a product proposition. So I think all those kind of aspects, gross margin percentage, what's happening with that? Is it heading in the right direction? When you're going to break even if you're not a profitable business yet? Those would be the sort of red flags that we'd be looking at in a business model and a business plan.
Mm-hmm. And I guess along those lines, in preparing somebody for being investor ready, Shing, I think a lot of entrepreneurs actually underestimate the extra legal support that they need to go through that process. Perhaps you can shed a bit of light on what that support is, and also what role you play in supporting a brand to know whether it is the right time and whether they do have their ducks in a row, so to speak.
Yeah, sure. So I do a lot of work in the venture capital space. So, I start working with founders from the very early stage when they're looking to raise money from angels, seed funds. So at that point, you've got to get your ducks in a row. Like, you got to make sure that you know what your cap table looks like. Don't leave it in a mess. Like, know who you've granted shares to, granted options to, and don't give away too much at the very early stage. I always say that to them, because as you do further rounds, you're inevitably going to be diluted further. You got to have a substantial stake in the company in order to be aligned with your investors. So you got to keep that in mind. So we would always talk to founders about that, making sure that they're on the right path. You get your cap table right. When it comes time to negotiating your term sheet, putting in place your articles, your shareholders agreement, again, that's something that we will help you with. There's inevitably a cost associated with that. I think we're very good at being reasonable in terms of the approach. The cost expenses, right? The benefits you got to think about. So I think my advice would be work with people who are used to working with businesses like yours. They understand the cost constraint you have, but at the same time are able to set you up so that you're not hindering yourself in terms of raising future funds. So that would be my way.
Marika, on the crowdfunding side, I've seen great products flop when it comes to their campaign and just not hit the target. And I've seen great products do exceedingly well. What's the difference? What is it that makes a killer campaign? And what is it that some brands just underestimate when it comes to the real preparation around a successful crowdfunding campaign?
Yeah, I mean, it is a project. Fundraising is going to be a project regardless of fundraising avenue. I think we can all agree on that. So sort of two key success factors would be sort of engagement and time. It's very obvious when it comes to crowdfunding campaigns that input leads to output. So speaking of sort of engagement, firstly, Seedrs and equity crowdfunding, it's not only a way of raising money, but it's also a marketing tool. You're on the platform, you raise brand awareness, you're allowing your community to invest, which turns them into brand ambassadors. So one sort of success driver is definitely treating it as a marketing campaign as well. This means engaging your community and before, during, and after the raise, shouting about the campaign on social media, arrange an event, do offline marketing, set a strategy for how you're going to tell people about your campaign. One example could be Pollen and Grace, like you mentioned. They had little stickers on their food boxes.
I saw that.
Yeah,
I thought that was genius.
And I got all these Snapchat and Instagram photos from my friends, like, oh, they're raising on Seedrs. And that's really efficient sort of spread the word about the campaign. And some people feel like, oh, that's a lot of work to do like marketing around it. But what I really love about it is that you actually spend a few months of engaging with your most important assets, your customers and community. And then the second driver is, of course, time and timing. So ask yourself, is now the right time to spend money and time on a campaign? If you're a gym, for instance, maybe your prime time is January because everybody has the new year, new me vibe in January. Then it makes more sense to have the campaign before or after that period. So time and engagement.
So Michael, with your experience, recent purchase of Planet Organic, which is a brand that a lot of people will know, and investment in other key areas, including Good Hemp is another in your portfolio. Can you share your insights into the direct impact that this money is actually having on the business? What's it allowing them to do? How is it allowing them to dominate in the industry?
Well, I mean, if you take the example of Good Hemp, which is a brand that makes food and drink products from hemp seed, and hemp is nutritionally rich and environmentally sustainable. In that example, the investment from Inverleith really allowed what we would term a professionalization of the business. So before we invested, it didn't have a full-time managing director. It outsourced its sales and marketing. And so through the Inverleith investment, we were able to put in a full-time managing director. We were able to bring sales and marketing back in-house, so get that control of the brand from a sales and marketing perspective in-house, which is really important. Appoint a head of marketing, a head of commercial, bring in people within the finance team. So we were able to set it up for success in terms of from an organizational resource perspective. And then a lot of that investment has then been focused on driving awareness, so investment into consumer marketing, investment into trade marketing, and by setting up the business in that way as well, it's allowed them also to shift some of their attention on to continuing to innovate and look at MPD and look towards the future. So I think for Good Temp, those are probably the areas that that's where the money has gone and how it set it up for success. With the likes of Planet Organic as an example, what I think the investment from Inverleith enabled it to do is be very clear on what its strategic focus was for the next period of time, and then the money will enable it to implement that strategy at a accelerated pace versus what it would have been able to do had there not been that external investment.
And I suppose with Planet Organic, how important has the timing been around that? Because, they've stayed as, a small number of supermarkets for quite some time, and they're about to grow that number significantly. Is the timing right because of the way the consumer mindset has shifted as well, and just a general, as you said before, openness to that type of store?
Yeah, I think the timing is absolutely right now. I think the timing could have been right previously as well, but for various different reasons, it maybe wasn't right for the company to take on investment at that stage. But I think what Planet Organic offers, there's a lot of talk about the retail environment, the high street environment, all that kind of thing. And Planet Organic, for us is the way of the future, which is, it's got a combination of different areas. It's a natural and organic supermarket. It's health and beauty. It's food to go. But what it's offering is an experience in store. There's people in there who you can ask questions to, and they can give you advice and they can help you. It's got a huge community angle to it, Planet Organic. It becomes at the hub of a community. And I think that sort of retail of the future is beyond just being the traditional showcase for the brands and where you can pick up something that you could just as easily get online. You have to add something more, give more value to the consumer, and I think Planet Organic is at the forefront of that concept, as well as being at the forefront of the likes of refillable packaging and all those kind of it's very much led the trend. There's been a lot of publicity around Waitrose, which has gone to refillable cartons and various different things over the last few weeks. Planet Organic's been doing that for the last 5 to 10 years. And it's just that it's chosen not particularly to shout about it. Because it's
maybe it should.
Maybe it should, yes, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I always think, too, of Planet Organic as very much an incubator for brands as well. They really take some of these beautiful little startup brands and turn them into to sort of grown-up brands. Shing, you just touched briefly on the importance of knowing how much to raise. What role do you and your team play in supporting a startup to know, how much is too much, how much is enough, so that they don't have to raise again in the short term?
Yeah, because we do a lot of transactions in the space, we get an idea on what the ballpark is for doing a seed round, what the ballpark is for doing an A round. So we're very happy to have conversations with founders about what the good sort of guidance that we give them. And let's not forget, not just the fundraising, but also the operational bit. So the firm itself, I have a lot of colleagues in areas such as IP, commercial, employment. So you also got to get the other aspects, right? The operational bit. Now you're going to start hiring people. What are you going to keep in mind? You're going to make sure that if these guys if you're hiring engineers, for instance, they're going to start creating IP. You're going to make sure that the IP is vested in the company, for example. So again, I have colleagues who can help with that. And then if you're going to start thinking about your brand, you want to protect your brand. What do you need? What do you need to do? So those are the kind of things that we can do to help businesses.
And from your experience, in what ways has that investor money either helped is obviously the outcome that we want, but are there any ways in which it's hindered a business as well because perhaps they haven't had those things ready, and from all of your experience too?
Yeah, I think you gotta, I guess, know how to spend the money. You can't, because the money is limited in terms of what you're raising at that point in time. You can't address every single problem you have in your business. You gotta prioritize issues. So I think knowing where to spend it, how to spend it, and there'll be issues that you can't address at that point that you need further money for. So I think knowing how to prioritize those issues, I think, are really important.
Marika, from your experience, how has some of your success stories, I suppose, showcase how crowdfunding can help a business, and really happy to hear some of those as well. Are there any instances where, you know, it's hindered a company because they haven't thought through the next steps post-investment?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of more a general discussion on, you know, how can investment hinder, and I agree exactly with your thoughts, Shing, regarding sort of think about the future. Are you going to raise money again? What would that look like? You will be diluted. There's so many different structures and so many different types of investors. So you need to sort of do your research beforehand. Like, if an investor comes and wants a board seat, what does that mean for my business, both in sort of operational level, but also structural level? What does it mean if they want preference shares, or if they want B or A shares? How will that affect my company today, but also, you know, 10 years from now? There's a lot of sort of different things to think about when raising money, because it's nice to have a lot of money, but it comes with a trade-off. Raising too much can also be dangerous. You start spending money on nice-to-have things, and suddenly you become in the situation where you have all these employees and you need to fundraise every year to sort of sustain. So it always comes with a trade-off, and it's important to sort of remember that.
The money doesn't come free. I think it comes with
exactly. It's always a cost.
It comes with cash.
Mm-hmm. And from your perspective, Michael, what is that for Inverleith?
I mean, I was just going to touch on that I agree in terms of that, you know, the key is if, you know, what would hinder a business is if you take on money and then you don't get a return on investment from that money, because it's going to be so much harder to then go back out and raise more money, because you don't have a success story. You want to always be giving a success story. And so that's about clarity of understanding where the money is going to be channeled and what are the objectives of that investment and what's going to be the return. You know, I touched on organizational design in terms of a good temp bringing in a sort of senior exec team. You know, you've got to then show that they've got to bring something into the business, that, you know, you've got to see that team is then, you know, driving revenues upwards. They can't just can't be flatlining and not delivering. So I think that's where investment can hinder if it's not spent well or in the right areas, and you can't demonstrate the return on investment. It makes it much harder further down the line.
And in your experience, is part of that ensuring that the startups that you support have a clear optics in their business, that they know what they're measuring, why they're measuring it, and how that will turn into a successful outcome?
Yes, I mean, you know, you should. It goes back to Shing's point earlier that, you know, when you're looking for investment, you need to have a clear 3 to 5 year business model. You need to know, you know, how is that model being? What are the foundation stones that are driving that model? What are the levers that you're using to drive it forward? And you need to be meticulously tracking that the business is heading in the right direction. And if it's not, and you're not hitting the relevant KPIs, you know, act swiftly to don't bury your head in the sand. Act swiftly to do something about it, and actually use your investors to help as well, because you know, I think sometimes there can be the expectation that investors are only wanting to hear good news, you know, where it's fantastic, we've achieved X, Y, and Z. If you're an investor like Inverleith, we're on the same page. You know, we're sharing the same vision and goal for the company. So we'd rather know about problems earlier on, so that then you know, we understand that businesses don't always grow in the way that they're expected to. But if you raise that and flag that issue early on, perhaps we can help, or there's, you know, other people that we know that can help, or whatever else. You can address it together. So don't bury your head in the sand if things are heading in the wrong direction. Sort of speak up and admit it. I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I just have to add that. Yeah, so it's like our investor on Seedrs, they love when companies actually confront and be transparent with any sort of downside in the business, because that's the nature of startup, and that's the exciting part of it as well. And one can help. So.
Marika, you've obviously got eyeballs on trends and the types of companies that are coming to you within the wellness category. Are there any that you flag as sort of particularly hot right now, or particularly exciting as far as future trends are concerned?
Yeah, so I come in contact with a lot of, you know, like boutique fitness studios. I don't know if anyone has like classifieds, but, you know, there's a myriad of places to go here in London, which is really cool. I mean, you're targeting a sort of elite segment, people who already spend money on fitness, people who go to gym 5 days a week. But then there's sort of both the aspect of building these studios outside of London too, like outside of capital cities. So I come in contact with more and more companies targeting, you know, outside M25 region, and also more companies targeting a big group within the sort of fitness sector, which is people who want to stay healthy and they want to involved in fitness activities, but they feel a bit intimidated by the gym. They might feel like it's not really for them. It's a bit commitment to go there every day, etc. So there's still some opportunities within the sort of fitness industry that I think is going to be more popular coming.
Mm-hmm. I might give you guys an opportunity to ask this panel some questions. We've got about 5 or 10 minutes left. We might throw it out to you guys instead. Yes, we do have a mic somewhere, or am I using it? Nope, we've got one. Fire away, thanks.
Marika, you answered a really interesting question earlier about sort of the red flags on why you would or wouldn't consider a business suitable for Seedrs. Yeah. Can we flip that on its head a bit and give you your perspective on the advantages and drawbacks of crowdfunding versus venture capital or even venture debt? And then consequently from that, is crowdfunding suitable for a certain type of business or perhaps a business at a certain point in its life cycle?
Yeah, definitely. So the slightly confusing and nice aspect about crowdfunding is there's actually no secret recipe. There's so many different cases and different exceptions. We've had everything from Hyperloop trains to healthy food and wellness companies on the platform. So we do have a sort of checklist for what makes a good crowdfunding company, but you don't have to tick all the boxes. And let me give you a few examples. So for instance, one good metric is, of course, to see if the company has sort of customer segment and a community that they want to engage, because that's one of the benefits of doing a crowd raise. You engage customers and you do some marketing while raising money. So then we can look at the size of their community, how much they're spending on their products, if they're engaged on social media, etc. Examples here could be like Revolut, Pollen and Grace, ShockShake. They had good customer bases, an engaged community that they then wanted to sort of re-engage. But then there's also a lot of companies coming to us that does really well who they might not have a community, but they want to use the platform to build one. It could be Risk, an insurance company. Great investment opportunity for investors and therefore did really, really well. So there's always sort of exceptions to the rule when it comes to crowdfunding. The traditional recommendations always have that community engagement aspect, but we've had so many different types of companies and industries that there's really no secret recipe.
Good question, thank you. I think we've got another one at the front.
I was just wondering for crowdfunding, so you will support like the businesses to raise the campaign and this, but then after, is there anyone supporting or helping with like dedicated advice, or is there like a platform to help to go through the investments and?
So basically, our goal when we work with companies, that we want to work with them until point of exit. So we are sort of on the cap table. It's going to be the Seedrs owner. We will be like a sort of passive owner legally wise. So we won't have a board seat. We won't have any sort of, usually not really have too much opinion about how the company is run, unless it's a threat to our investors. But then what we do offer is a sort of, Seedrs is an ecosystem. So we try to help our companies with anything from, how to enter a new market, or if they need contacts within a new co-working space or recruitment or anything. So yes, you do get assigned a sort of personal contact at Seedrs that you can ask any questions about. If you need discount to, Amazon Web Services or Stripe, we can help you with that. Anything that the business needs on a sort of operational level, that we can help you with.
All right. Whereas like something like a business angel would be more implicated in the business.
Yeah.
By hand or something.
Yeah. So maybe like an angel or VC, they might come and take a board seat, and they might be like more hands-on in the company and work on a daily basis with like, this is how you should recruit, you should look for this, and this is a strategic plan for your company. So they might be more of a strategic partner in a sense, whereas Seedrs is more of a passive owner, but a helping hand in anything that the business might need.
All right.
And then of course you have your investor base, which is a crowd of people you can reach out to and let them know if you're launching a new product, etc., and then they can help you as well.
But it's more diverse and it's hard to reach to so many persons at the.
Yeah. I mean, you get access to like a platform, so you can speak to all of them at the same point, but it's going to be a big group of people.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you. I think there's a question next to you.
Hi. I've been working with Alison Rose on the Rose Report that shows an appalling statistic around 1% of women getting investment from private equity level. I'm very lucky I've been in that 1%. Why is that? And when people are coming to you, what are you seeing that's actually making the investor turn off? I'm just interested to hear your experience.
Interesting question. we have invested in businesses that have had very strong female founders. So as an example, Montezuma's, which is a premium chocolate company, also plays in the health and wellness space because it's got vegan offering, organic, that kind of thing. Montezuma's is a husband and wife couple, Helen and Simon Atkinson. And Helen has been instrumental to driving Montezuma's over the last 18 years. Likewise in Good Hemp, Glynis Murray, one of the founders of Good Hemp, and has created with Henry Brown Good Hemp from day one. So we've invested into a lot of businesses that have had very strong female founders, and they've had a very powerful influence on how the business has grown and developed. So the honest answer is I don't know the answer to your question.
It's a horrific statistic.
It surprises me. It surprises me.
Yeah, I think I work in the venture space. It's male dominated, but I think we're starting to see changes in the industry. I don't think we're there yet, clearly, but we're seeing changes whereby people are embracing female leaders. And even when it comes to investing in businesses that are backed by female founders, I think one of the things that I'm seeing more nowadays is the femtech. So, the convergence of female health and tech. And then these are generally started by women. I'm seeing a lot more investments in early stage investment in that area. I'm hoping that the trend will stay that way and improve. And I think we all have a part to play in this. And I think the more aware we are of the issues, and I think the more
what you're not discussing, and what do you see as those issues? Because I think there are people in the room that are going to ask for investment. And then 99% of them are going to get no.
I don't know whether it's because the VC investors are men.
There's a conscious
that's right. Yeah.
But therefore we need to talk about it.
Can I add?
Just jump on this regarding the question. Is that also sometimes I've seen, like, for incubators or things like this, they don't like when there's only like one person, like one founder, and so like one founder being a female, would that raise like barriers? And was from Planet Organic, was she alone on the only founder, or was it like a team?
Renee Elliott was the founder of Planet Organic. She founded it about 20 years ago. But Planet Organic has had she's been a more in the back seat in Planet Organic. She's been a spokesperson and an ambassador for the brand. But she's not been a majority shareholder in Planet Organic for a number of years. It's a really interesting topic because it's the first time I've ever had this question posed. We're not a venture capital investment fund, so we're looking at businesses that are sort of 5 million plus in turnover. But I struggle to answer it because we know what we're looking for, and this is not an angle that we're aware of, or that we've come across as being an issue, and we're about supporting businesses where we see the potential of them, and they satisfy all our different criteria. As to who's founded them is for us totally irrelevant. Yeah.
But it horrified me that that was what the report shows.
I've not heard that.
Can I share an interesting? So I'm from Sweden, and they did like a study a few years ago where they were basically assessing like how female and male entrepreneurs were assessed in the sort of evaluation criteria, and then the first interview with investors. And if a female entrepreneur was young, she was inexperienced, whereas a male was described as promising. If a man was spending a lot of money, he was like, he wants growth, he wants to grow faster. Whereas a woman who spent a lot of money, she was wasteful. So there's research and there's studies on, there's so much bias in the industry, and also goes back to what Shing was saying, that we see a lot of men in investment positions. So I feel also like a lot of women don't feel like they can identify with the investor, and the investor feel like they can't identify with maybe the entrepreneur, and that goes back to risk, because what do investors do? They assess risk. If they feel like they can't really maybe understand the person, if the person's very different to them, it might feel like a bit more risky. It goes back to the similarity effect, and we like what we see, But that's also why crowdfunding is such an sort of popular element for a female-funded business, because there's less bias, and we had a lot of success cases when it comes to female founders.
Very interesting question. And no, it needs to be talked about. We are at time, unfortunately, but I'm sure that our panelists will stick around for some questions. Thank you. Join me in thanking Marika, Shing, and Michael for sharing their insights. And we've got a 10-minute break now, so enjoy.